Perfect.
because they're inherently evil.
Yeah,
Kind of let you know, somebody voted against.
we all need positive pets.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order at 7:11.
Due to technical
Due
difficulties.
to, yeah. I don't see anybody else there.
No. Many people visiting.
All right. Let's start with the draft minutes from March 4th. The only thing I had on is it was dated March 5th
Yeah.
and our meeting was the 4th. Anybody else?
I didn't see anything else.
May I ask a question about it?
Yeah.
Under new business. A1, no changes proposed in zoning 2024-2025. Can you elaborate more on that?
I think it's what you had said that we didn't have to worry about.
I-
Any of the changes.
This is the lengthy process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would just a clarification on that because there's legislation that passed the House and gone to the Senate, which would require us to make some changes to the
Okay.
ADU. So I just want to be transparent, I guess, about that. We don't know if it's going to pass the Senate or not, but if it does, we will have to make changes.
So what would we say then?
Nothing's gonna be done this year for sure.
Unless required by law or, you know, unless required by
State law.
state law.
Statute.
Yeah.
Yep.
Revisions to state statutes.
No anticipate.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Or, and also I would say related to the HOPGrant, because we're also looking at what insurance.
Right.
Stuff. It's not related to the HOPGrant, but it will be a change. Yeah, that's.
You gotta march when you come in
Make your entrance.
with your flag going like this. Okay, anything else on the minutes from March 4th?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I second.
Roll call?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Public comment? You're not really public, are you, Christine? You're like,
There was some stuff there at the end under other business.
okay, all right. Usually it's Cam. We'll come back to the interviews when we talk about the new, down a new business. There's been a delay in the land use chapter. If I understood Carol correctly, Jeff Littleton from Moosewood edited the old land use chapter.
Oh, no.
And not the one that Carol had updated, is that correct? Is that what? the plan-
He was asking for clarification at the last planning board meeting or 2 planning board meetings ago, and
It seems like hitting both.
I think he said he was doing both, and that he was gonna edit what she had going forward. Yeah.
Okay, so Carol had expected that we would have those for this meeting, but it's still delayed for that. As is the final of the population and housing analysis. All right, so interviews. How are they going?
Okay.
From the folks I've heard from, we've had 28 so far.
Oh, good.
Um,
It's a good start.
yeah,
Yeah. I have more
Yeah.
people I need to talk to, but I was away, so I didn't talk to them before I left.
yeah,
I think they're
I-
going well. I do think that under option 3, it feels very like there's not really anything to talk to. I don't know if others have run into that as well.
Which one is that?
ADU.
It's the attached ADU.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Well, it's gonna be allowed, so I personally am not sure what I'm getting feedback on.
Well,
And
I don't
If
think
they
there-
want it, if they like the idea of the ADU, pretty much, that's the concept.
Yeah, I guess it just feels like, well, we already allow that.
I've
so,
just been
but-
using it as education because so many folks don't know that they can have
Sure,
ADUs.
Sure,
But I have had some folks say if water and septic are sufficient, I should be allowed to have one attached to my house and maybe one over my garage. So I've gotten that
sure,
in
and that's
an
what the
interview,
state
so
statute
two,
is about, is, right, it's allowing detached ADUs on,
Right,
I
there's
think
some
two
other,
on it.
I can go into more detail
Yeah.
if you want, but that is one of the things,
Right.
is to allow both a detached and an attached.
well, this person was saying, if my garage is attached to my house and I have a full
Oh, I see.
finished upstairs, I would have liked to have had the ability to have two attached ADUs.
Oh,
One that
two
was
attached. I
one that
see.
was
Okay.
already going to be attached to the house, and then retro, the one above the garage that was attached to the house.
I see. So I mean, that's a different.
So that's the only
case. Yeah.
conversation that is out of the ordinary. I've just used it to make sure that folks are aware that they can have an
Right.
ADU.
Right.
Yeah,
So yes, the state statute would, if it passes, would allow two ADUs, and there could be two attached. Under the new language.
yeah,
The second one would be by special exception or, conditional use. So it would still have to go through
yeah,
consideration for septic.
right, exactly.
So we'll see if it passes. The other suggestion I have when you're talking about attached ADU is the size,
Mhm.
because our language is really confusing on the size. So I would ask for
That's the,
comment on what seems like a reasonable size or a formula.
Because it can't be larger than the primary house.
Right.
for
Right.
folks that are,
Yeah.
Well, wasn't there also the minimum of like 1,200 square?
no,
feet
minimum
for
of four,
ADU?
minimum of 400.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm like just thinking of like when there was a conversation back when I was on the planning board.
it could be, yeah.
That was like a thing of me being like, well, what's the point of having like it, so an ADU has to be at least 1,200 square feet.
Yeah,
No.
minimum 400 currently.
So the new language says, it increases the minimum size restriction for ADUs to 1,000 square feet for one unit and 850 for additional units. So that if it passes,
Of attached,
yeah.
Yeah.
But just, I mean, we don't know what's
That's
Right.
the minimum.
gone through. Minimum size restriction.
That's
Yeah.
interesting because a lot of
Wait,
people,
wait, that's,
yeah, that's,
Size.
it's very,
No,
and
that
also a lot of people like
Becomes
this.
cost prohibitive.
Well, yeah,
wait, that's,
yeah, because they're supposed to be
minimum?
encouraging people to add those. And a lot of
Yeah.
people like the smaller spaces, especially if you're talking about seniors.
Right.
That goes against what,
1,200 feet goes to us, that's a small, single-family home.
So,
yeah,
Christine, a question then, what happens if that state statute passed, right? And so obviously then that would be what we would need to follow, right,
Right.
as a town, but then can we amend it to say it? Could be a minimum of 400 or whatever the minimum is,
not if it's a state.
Yeah, I'm
kind of
just looking
like
to see
in-
where the
yeah.
exact.
I can't-
Choose a summary document.
Yeah,
so
I can't believe they're saying a minimum of,
That seems, yeah. it
Yeah.
seems-
I mean, that's
Right.
just defeating the purpose.
it almost seems like
Yeah,
it should be the
yeah.
maximum, right?
Yeah. Especially when they're trying to encourage more housing.
And folks that I've interviewed that have either been on the planning board or are very familiar with our zoning ordinances have commented to the fact that the determination of the square footage is confusing.
A municipality may also establish minimum and maximum sizes for an accessory dwelling unit, provided that size may not be restricted to less than, it used to be 750. 1,000 square feet for one of the units by right, and 850 for any of the other.
Well, that just defeats
Wait,
the
so it
purpose of,
can't- it
Yes.
I know, it feels like it's written.
But
And
like,
we
oh,
believe that it may be.
So that just means if we set a minimum size, it has to be that big, but if we don't set a minimum size, then it can be anything.
Yes, Okay, yeah.
Oh, my, that's a good.
That could be a good point.
Okay, that makes more sense then.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So then why do they bother, why do they have a minimum square footage of 800 or 1,200, whatever? it was?
Just,
Without-
I guess to have a minimum, but if you said nothing, then.
I don't know who proposed that change, so I don't know the thinking behind it.
Very crazy.
I guess the other thing during my interviews that I mean, I shared with Pam, but I did not get through to like actually ranking them with most people due to small children and
Oh.
other things happening. I don't know if everyone did that during yours.
I
But
did, but
I had,
just wanted to share that because I think some of the, I feel like a lot of my data was contextual, like it was like, yes, we like that, blah, 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 you know, like a lot more
Right.
context around each question, not a simple like yes and no.
right,
That's been
I had
my
the same thing on a
experience.
couple. I also have had quite a few that said, I like, if somebody wants to do any of these on their property and the septic and sewer are sufficient design plan, they can have any and all of them. So I tried to figure out, because we're looking for the one with the smallest score at the end being the most favorable, right? But in that case, should we give them all ones all the way across?
no.
Or do
I think what you need to do is really press them for at least the top three.
Or just leave them at 0.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
leave them
I
at
think leaving
zero.
the zero would be better.
Textually, like if I think if we, at least if I read through what mine were, I have a sense of
Yeah.
what people liked and what they didn't like.
Right.
And
And the comments you included were really
Yeah,
helpful to
I think
understand
that
that.
that is, at the end of the day, it's not gonna be, it's spit out exactly what we need to do. I don't think it will. So I think it's more of conversations of what we heard and what people
Yeah.
liked.
So I mean, I'm gonna be like biased, but like pretty much anyone I asked, which was also under the age of 40. Was like, is this actually gonna do anything for me being able to afford a home? And I was like, probably not. And they're like, why should I give a shit then?
Well, because you never know, you have to start somewhere.
But I'm just saying from the community of people I asked about this were very defeated of being like, what's the point? It's not gonna change it.
I think we've had more conversations this year with a larger number of community members than perhaps previous. I know-
Not saying,
Do you
like,
think
my,
people are more open? Like, could you go back to those people and say, well, we're hearing some feedback that people might be open to it, or is it more about?
no, it's more of like
Like-
it's, you know,
We can't control.
like the average house in New Hampshire just hit $500,000.
Mhm.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you know what? New Hampshire isn't the only state. That's the whole thing. It's across the country.
Oh.
I mean, that doesn't change.
No, it doesn't.
the fact of
No.
being like, oh, let's see, like, even if I made like 50 grand a year,
It's.
I'm priced out. Even if I made like 100 grand a year, as a single person, I'm pretty much almost priced out. And jobs around here, if you look on Indeed,
They don't.
between $14 and $26 an hour. On every now and then I look. Like you could go pack maple syrup from Ben for $13 an hour if you wanted to. And you couldn't afford to live within 20 miles. And that was what people my age were just like, yep, like this is bullshit, like we're not gonna accomplish anything because we're not gonna end up anywhere anyways. Is the response I got from asking people under the age of 35 about these questions.
Did you ask any of them, like what would be desirable for them to live in, other than the cost related? Are they open, are they okay with an ADU, are they preferring?
I mean, pretty much anything other than being homeless is,
Yeah,
I've had one, two, at least two
well,
that have
living
said
with
New
your
Ben- the New
parents.
Benisset, community, or Walden, rather, would be appealing
Mhm.
the eco
in the
village.
right place.
Yeah.
Mhm. But it's worth listening. I do think that people have opened up much more in the one-on-ones than, and we've reached people that didn't come to our forums.
Oh, good.
How did everybody else?
Someone said to me that they didn't feel comfortable speaking up at the forum, and certainly Ivy wasn't like welcoming it, so these are perfect.
Yeah.
Cause for that person, this was the only chance for them to actually share.
Mhm.
How about you, Marie? What are you hearing?
I haven't had a chance to do it, sorry,
Okay.
to be honest.
Russ, any
The,
thoughts?
the interviewees from, my house.
Yeah.
So it's the two kids that are looking for a place to live, and then Vanessa, it's of course, Vanessa and I have a place, so
Right.
some of the stuff, like, ADUs, like, we would like that ADU because we're thinking of some different ideas, and my parents and all that. So, but we're allowed to have it attached. I think we could split our house now for all. The kids, two of them were lucky enough to find a place in Peterborough, but it's really expensive, and it's just the two of them. And it just happens they both make a lot of money. My daughter and her boyfriend, I mean, they've been looking for a year and can't find an apartment, you know, and they're just like, well, we're just gonna have to live with you. Have changed the law.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be speaking with Amy, who's Tim Fisk's niece,
Mhm.
and she's been hopping around to Ren. Somewhere else she mentioned, she's in Peterborough now. They would love to live in Temple because they're bringing their daughter over to the Waldorf school, but they just can't find any place for it. We'll probably excited to talk to her.
Yeah.
See her experiences.
It's not even just Temple, there's really no housing anyway.
No,
Right,
exactly.
right.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
why.
Yeah.
But her family.
But with her family here, she'd like to be here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, she's in Peterborough. She's not
Well,
quite
we
New
are
York
now.
now.
I know she was hopping around the country doing house sitting gigs
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
with her toddler,
Oh, wow.
Great.
because it was.
Well, it's perfect if you work
good for
remotely.
you to work at.
It's fun. Yeah. Yeah. So any other questions, comments, or feedback on the format that we've been using? And if you've tweaked it at all while doing these?
I think I end up like explaining, I think the picture is helpful, but it's also important to understand, I think, the actual change that goes
Right.
along with it, so I found myself like explaining that, as we go through,
Mhm.
but I mean, I think the format is fine, and I mean, we're almost done, right?
Yeah.
Half a month here, so
Yep.
we should dramatically.
No,
change
I was just
anything.
wondering if you had made any adjustments while doing it that would be helpful for others who are still working on them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we have till the end of the month. Our goal was 80. If we did each 10 apiece, we'll see what we get. I mean, like I said, I just counted them up before I left. It was 28 so far. All right. So other business, Christine.
Yeah, so, just today I sent some new maps to Jeff Littleton for updating the maps for the land use chapter. I don't know if Carter had, or Russ had shared that the planning board approved spending an additional $1,000 to get that project done. It was just more complicated than they anticipated once they got the data from Avatar. So it's taking a little longer to do the maps.
Yeah.
I just got the digital data today and I'm trying to figure out how to access it. So I might need some help.
Right.
I asked Keith if he had any pointers, and I haven't heard back from him yet, but, I was for my next call. So you can help me figure that out, that would be helpful. A couple things, other things, there's gonna be a new round of grant funding. I haven't heard anything yet on how to apply for it, but it's been approved, so we're waiting to hear on that. If
And
we
what is that for?
we could apply for it for help with regulatory development. which is
Okay.
The third phase. So someone could help us write the changes to the ADU or whatever else we need, without us having to go back and forth with legal, which is very costly.
Mhm.
So this could save us money if we go that route, and I don't think we would need that much to
No.
finish that project, but it would be really helpful. Concom event Wednesday night,
Yeah,
Jeff Littleton for the natural resources presentation.
that's a great flyer.
Yeah, it was great.
Mhm.
That was a
Yeah.
really eye-catching
Yeah.
flyer.
He made it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice.
He's done good work. And, let's see, tomorrow night, I alluded to this earlier, we have somebody coming from the New Hampshire Office of Planning and Development to tell us about floodplain ordinance. I don't know if everybody knows, the temple was recently mapped finally by FEMA, and it's
Mhm.
took years to get that done. We don't have the final maps, but we are anticipating them within the next few months, so. There are areas in town that will be mapped as flood hazard areas, so, we will present a floodplain ordinance, hopefully, to voters in March. So if anybody's curious about how all that works, that's tomorrow night. And then on the legislative update, do you want more details on what was presented, or do you want to wait and see what comes out of it?
I'd wait. Cause one never knows. It's such a wild card with them.
It is. It's, I mean, it passed the House, which is further than it's gotten before, but it has gone to the Senate, so. Let's see, there, I
Can you give us the high level of
Just
which
general,
topics they were?
As Carter already said, it would require both, it would require two, or allow two ADUs, per lot. I think a half acre is what the minimum was for them, and it is not, they still have to meet much water requirements. Let's see. We would not have to have an interior door between the principal dwelling and the ADU. That's one of the things that's currently required.
Mhm.
The parking space, it would allow us to require up to one additional parking space, but there's another House bill that talks about parking, which I'll tell you about in a second. Let's see. If we required any form-based standards, like aesthetic, saying it had to resemble the main house. We could only enforce that if we also said that about principal dwellings townwide for every, like it has the same rules have to apply for everyone, whether it's single family or single family with an ADU.
So you'd have to have form base for a single family being built. If
Exactly.
you want to be able to have form base for the,
For the
ADU.
Right. The size we already talked about, let's see. There's a couple of things that we don't have in our zoning, so it wouldn't really affect us, but one is that you don't have to sometimes require that the person living in the ADU is related.
Yeah.
To that, so we don't have that. And then some ordinances, say you can only have one bedroom, we restrict the number of bedrooms. Let's see. Then the other bill, House Bill 1400, talked about parking, and we've talked about this before, how right now our zoning says each new dwelling shall provide a suitable parking space for at least 4 cars, garage and driveway included.
Mhm.
They would have proposed changing that to, may not mandate more than 1 parking space per residential.
Mhm.
Yes, that also passed out. And we've gone.
That just always been in our zoning, or was that?
I have no idea
Yeah.
when it went in.
It seems kind of excessive.
It does.
An older resident does not remember it when they were adults and building homes.
Yeah, I wonder when that came into
Yeah.
play.
But during these conversations, because we've got that information out here, almost every single interviewee said, 4 is crazy.
Yeah,
2 of us live in the house
Yeah,
and we have 2 cars. Yeah,
yeah, so if you have a house and an ADU, that's 8.
exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think I've had anybody that said, oh yeah, you need to keep 4 for every unit.
Yeah,
I think every single interview I've done
Yeah.
said, no, that's silly.
so we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
One
One
that's the
said-
only language in that House bill, so it may not. be.
Yeah. One said for ADU, a minimum of 1.5 cars. I'm like, "Yeah." Well, because generally there's only one person living there. I'm like, well, it's either 1 or 2. You're making my math hard here.
A car to scooter.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all.
Well, that's all good to know.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it.
Anything else?
Not for me.
Anything we missed? All right,
make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's have it.
Totally posted.
I said to Jim the last time. Oh,